just me in the recording, waiting to admit everyone. I'm going to pause the recording.
Zoom recording. Now I think it's recording.
Yep, looks like we're good to go. Thanks.
Great. Okay. So I just want to start by saying we titled this presentation The Perfect Pitch, but the truth is there is no such thing as a perfect pitch, and we don't want perfect to get in the way of good. You can say perfect can be the enemy of good. And so aim for perfection, but know that your best is enough, and that the only way to get really good at pitching your startup is to do it a lot. So people now will watch me pitch and be, oh, that's such a good pitch. You did such a good job. And that's only because I did such a bad job so many times for so many years, and took the feedback from the judges and the audience members into my pitch to make it better. Just like any product, the pitch isn't about you, it's about your consumer. So if they're not getting what you want out of the pitch, that's not their problem, that's your problem, and you need to adapt what you're saying. I do also want to say that winning business pitches and winning business plan competitions does not equal business success. And so I can't go into any presentation on pitching without bringing this to the forefront. The best source of capital for your business is the money from your customers, not prize money from competitions, not equity from investors. But if you're focused on business success, you'll have a higher likelihood of being celebrated for that success by winning pitch competitions. So just before we get into the meat of the presentation, just some kind of high level, this is what should be in your pitch at various stages. So if you're asked to do a 1-minute pitch, likely you'll be doing this without slides or with one slide. And so it's important when you're doing a 1-minute pitch to speak very, very clearly and not in complicated sentences, and in very visual ways, and use your hands. So you can say, you know, we're solving one problem. We make money in 2 ways. So very much use your body to visually cue what they don't get because they are not seeing slides with everything that you're talking about. The problem in a 1-minute pitch can be very light. So in a 1-minute pitch, the problem with OZÉ, we might just say, small business owners don't have the right tools, so they need to grow. It's a very, very simple explanation of the problem that we're trying to solve. Your solution, you want to go both into what it is and what it does, but also why it's different than either the status quo or competitive products out there. You want to talk about traction, but in a 1-minute pitch, you can probably only pick one traction metric. So you could say, we've signed these partnerships, or we have this many users, or we have this month growth rate, but you're probably in a 1-minute pitch not able to go through many of them. So pick the one that stands out the most. It's a business pitch, so they'll want to know how you make money. And then very importantly, I'm sure you've all heard it, that at the early stage, and anyone competing in the MEST Africa Challenge is definitely early stage, it's as much about you and your team as it is about your product and solution, because that will change over time. So it's very important, even in a 1-minute pitch, you can't go through your whole team, but you can talk about why your team is the right and only team to build what you're building. And then in the case of a 1-minute pitch, the ask is really, I'd love the opportunity to tell you more. No one has ever, maybe not ever, but it's rare that someone would just write a check after a 1-minute pitch. So here, all you're trying to do is entice them and get the opportunity to spend more time with the investor, the employee, the partner, the customer, whoever you're pitching to. In a 3 to 5 minute.
I'm sorry, but if you can make me the host so that I can add more people that want to join in, that'll be great.
Oh, I think Lundy has to do that.
Okay, Lundy.
I think sorry about that. I think because you're the host, you have to transfer the rights.
Oh, I'm the host now. Okay.
All the technicalities. Sorry about that.
Let me see what I can do. I just admitted everyone, and then.
I think if you go over to participants, sorry guys, please hold. If you go over to participants and over prints on the right-hand side, you can get the option of making him host. Hello to everyone joining just now. Thanks for being here.
Perfect. Okay, Prince, you're the host. You might have to make the breakout rooms later, but we'll roll.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry everyone who got stuck in the waiting room. You didn't miss much, just what a 1-minute pitch was. And we are recording, so you're always welcome to look at these later. And everyone who registered will share out the pitch deck with you after. So in a 3 to 5 minute pitch, you really want to cover everything you covered in a 1-minute pitch, but also you can add in more, obviously, because you have 3 to 5 times the amount of time. And so I think in a 3 to 5 minute pitch, where you can really build out is the problem. So the problem can be more than, small businesses don't have the tools they need to grow, but there are 140 million small businesses across the African continent, and 93% of them never grow to the stage where they can hire a single employee, right? That's taking a lot more time. It's asking for a lot more mental energy. I would probably want slides behind me if I'm going into that much detail, but in a 3 to 5 minute pitch, it's pretty likely that you'll be able to have slides. And then start bringing storytelling in. Storytelling is really hard in a 1-minute pitch because it's not enough time to do a story, which has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But once you get into a 3 to 5 minute pitch, you're starting to have enough time to tell brief stories, even if the story is just 3 sentences long. And a good place to bring in the storytelling is both on the problem, but also on the solution. And then here you also want to increase your kind of numbers. So instead of just talking about how you make money, we also want to see financial projections and or the total addressable market. Investors at this stage are never going to believe what you say you'll make next year and the next year and the next year because nobody knows. But what they're trying to grasp with your financials is, do you have a realistic but big enough picture of what kind of growth you're looking for? Because if you're just trying to grow 5% annually and you're telling that to an equity investor, they're going to tell you go to debt. This is not the growth model that we want. And for total addressable market, they want to know, if this solution works, is it worth my time and money? Are there enough people who have this problem? And then in a longer than 5 minute pitch, so in a 5 to 10 minute pitch, in your solution, then bring in more storytelling. Tell me about your customers, how they're using the solution, what you've learned from them. And also, if you have differentiation in your tech stack and you're a really technical founding team, the 5 to 10 minute pitch is a good place to bring that on. I don't want to know your tech stack unless all you're doing is like an API and the tech is really what's special. I don't need to know your tech stack in a 1-minute pitch. At this longer stage, we also want to know the competitive landscape. So who else is out there? What are they doing? So not just giving me your differentiation by telling me your unique selling proposition, but also tell me your differentiation compared to other people in the market and why you beat them even though they're incumbent.
Hey, Megan, sorry, I'm just going to stop you for a second. Hey, there's someone on here, I think, who has cute kids in the background, but if everyone who's participating can mute themselves, or Prince as the host, I believe you can also mute. I believe the audio is coming from, there we go. I think that'll help. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Megan.
No problem. And then we'd also love to know at this point your go-to-market strategy. So I think in a 1-minute pitch, you can very briefly say like, and we partner with associations, or we use Facebook ads, or we have a high level of virality in our product. But in a 5 to 10 minute pitch, I really want to get into the details of your go-to-market strategy and how you can get your product not into the hands of 10 people, but to 10 million. And then you can be more forward-looking now in your 5 to 10 minute pitch and tell me your roadmap. So when you're doing a 1-minute pitch, it's a little bit more vague as to like what you've done and what you're doing. You're painting a picture. You're trying to get them enticed and excited. But in a 5 to 10 minute pitch, you can say, we did this research and this is what we learned. So we ran this pilot and this is what we learned. And that's informing the next iteration of our app. And that's why we need your money to build out that iteration of our app. So you can be a lot more methodical in tracing the journey. But of course, everything from the 3 to 5 minute pitch also goes into the 5 to 10 minute pitch. So you also need to, for everything, kind of know your audience and understand, are they someone who's going to be really, really hyped about the numbers? And then maybe in a 1-minute pitch, you still just want to talk about your financial projections, your total addressable market, how much money you've made, or maybe you're talking to the government And they're not so interested in how you can become a billion-dollar company, but how you can help them achieve their goals. So that's kind of just a basic overview of what you need on these slides in a pitch, but you have to tailor it always to the situation. So now moving on to the second part, which is now that we know what goes into a pitch deck, how can you make that pitch deck really stand out? So I just want to recount my experience a little bit from the MEST Africa Challenge last year. The first night I got into Kenya, I met these other two lovely young gentlemen on stage and was like, there's absolutely no way I'm winning. This is going to be a lovely way to get the name of OZÉ out there. But like one of them is like doubling their customer acquisition every week. And one of them never raised any money and is still making millions of dollars of revenue. And I was like, this is cute. Like, it's nice that a woman gets to be on stage, a woman gets to be represented. But like this $50,000 is going to one of these fine young gentlemen. So you can tell in my face that I was very surprised. And after talking to a lot of people at the event, it really was, I think, the ability to get people excited about what the possibilities were with OZÉ. So yes, we've done some cool stuff, but we are so much more early stage than the other people competing. And so a pitch, you might think like, I haven't done enough, like I haven't made that much money yet, like we're so young, I'm so young, like I don't look like people who typically win pitch competitions. Don't let that stop you from putting your everything into the pitch, because that could be the differentiating factor. And I'm sure I only won because they decided to pick 3 winners. So you never know, if you can motivate and inspire people, then they're more likely to want to get behind you and join your team as an investor or as an employee. And so my kind of the takeaway from that is to ask yourself, what is your wow? And really have that be the key takeaway in your slides. So even if it's 10 minutes, which really does feel like an eternity on stage, you want to have, if the audience can only take away one thing about your company, what is it that you want them to take away? So it could be that you have a really amazing team. Like you haven't been able to build so much yet, but you have the right industry experience, or you're a second-time founder, or you live the problem. I hear really good pitches from people who they face this problem they're trying to solve their entire life, and now they're solving it for themselves. So maybe your team is what your wow is. Maybe you're good at telling a vivid story, and so when people are listening to many, many pitches, yours is the one that sticks with them. So if so, then don't bore me with so many graphs, but tell me stories and get me excited about your customers. Get me excited about what you think the world can look like with your product in it. Maybe you have crazy growth or really amazing traction. Like sometimes you hear these stories where you're like, yeah, like we just opened last week and we made our first $1 million this week, right? Well then, tell an investor that, because 2 things. One, they'll definitely want to get on that growth with you, but also they know that your company is becoming more and more expensive to invest in on a daily basis. If you're profitable already, that could be an interesting thing to highlight. The investor mindset is changing and growth is becoming less important than profitability or path to profitability, considering that we're about to enter a global recession. So if you're profitable, make that note. Or do you have impressive customers? Like, are you a B2B company who's already making money from the government or from a large financial institution? So ask yourself, what is the most impressive thing about my company? And if I can't guess that from your pitch, then you're doing something wrong. Okay, I want to just share a pitch, because everything I'm going to highlight next, these are the rules I live by when pitching. And instead of just showing you a ton of bullet points, I think you can probably take them away better from just watching a pitch. So I am, though, going to play it a little bit faster than normal, just so we don't spend so much time watching me on screen. Okay, so this was a pitch that OZÉ did just a couple months ago.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Meghan McCormick, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of OZÉ, a platform dedicated to small business growth in Africa. About 10 years ago, I moved in with Mohammed's family, and he became more than a host brother. He is my brother. But unfortunately, about 10 years from now, when he enters the job market, he's highly unlikely to find work. Where he lives in West Africa, youth unemployment is above 70%. Why? Small businesses make up the majority of firms, and they don't create jobs. And I think these notebooks are to blame. When an entrepreneur keeps their records in a notebook like this, they can't turn that data into good business decisions. And of course, they can't show up at a bank with a pile of notebooks and expect to get a loan. And so, more small businesses fail than grow. OZÉ changes that. OZÉ is a habit-forming platform that makes it easy for small business owners to keep records. We show them their performance in the dashboard so they can know how they're doing. And one of the first things you'll notice is their cash balance going up. With our reminder feature, it's really easy for businesses to collect money from customers who owe them. And if they need a little extra help, an OZÉ business coach is just a click away. So their performance improves and we celebrate. I built this technology while I was in graduate school at MIT and Harvard, and that gave us access to world-class advisors and talent. In addition, my co-founder Dave and I are second-time founders. We founded and scaled Francophone Africa's largest small business accelerator. We spent nearly a decade on the ground building empathy and understanding with small business owners and the market. And this market understanding taught us that we needed an integrated solution. While we do have competitors on certain functions that we provide, our holistic approach is what leads to business success. And that's why 97% of users who were active last year were profitable and or growing. There's entrepreneurs like the Sash Meister, who 10x'd his revenue in his first 5 months on the platform. And he's not alone. He's one of the more than 4,000 businesses in Ghana and Nigeria who are active on our platform and who have given us a net promoter score of 74. Together, they recorded more than 175,000 transactions worth $26 million US. We make money in 3 ways. The first is premium subscriptions, which have been growing at a monthly average growth rate of 67%. Our primary customer acquisition channel is Facebook, where we acquire users at 52 cents per download. And on average, customers are paying us $13 per month. So OZÉ works on a unit economics perspective. Second, we make money providing services to banks. We're the first credit expert for SMEs that takes both behavioral data and performance data into account. We use a proprietary machine learning algorithm to predict credit risk and make money each time we successfully match a user to a bank loan in an existing bank in Ghana. And the third way we make money is through ecosystem partnerships. We already have the largest digital database of small businesses in Ghana. And so this makes them a big, valuable asset. One of the ways we're doing that is by integrating with payments providers. And each time a merchant accepts or sends payment through our platform, we get a small commission. This is a big market opportunity. In Ghana alone, it's almost $1 billion, and across the continent, it's $18 billion. We're in Ghana now and piloting in Nigeria. But we're not just in it for the money. In year 1, OZÉ entrepreneurs created 175 new jobs, and at scale, we predict that each one can create 2 to 4 new jobs per year. So we changed the fundamental economy of the African continent. OZÉ means dare, and I dare you to join us in unleashing the potential of small businesses across the continent. So when Mohamed goes out to look for a job, not only can he find one, but if he wants, he can be a successful entrepreneur with OZÉ by his side.
So now my embarrassment for the day is done. We don't have to watch me pitch ever again. I see a question from Rebecca from Mango Solar about switching your slides. I think the best way that is doing it yourself. So if I'm sure you can get it on Jumia, but if you invest in like a small clicker and you can bring it with you, they're very rarely to be like, no, you can't use your own clicker to change slides. The second best thing would be to have somebody on your team change the slides for you and know when the slides have to be changed. I think the third best is just giving them a look and a nod when you're ready to change. And the fourth best is saying next, because you get this really frenetic energy if you're now punctuating every sentence with next or every slide with next. And if you timed it to be just on exactly the amount of time you have, you're now going to be slightly over time. But my advice would be to, if you can, bring your own clicker, have a clicker, and at a large event like the MEST Africa Challenge, they'll definitely have clickers.
Thanks, Megan. I'm just going to jump in quickly for context because that's a great question, Rebecca. For the MEST Africa Challenge, which this year has gone virtual, we have decided to consolidate all the decks on our end just for connectivity. You guys know how it goes with internet and how people sharing their screens on their own end can sometimes especially tie up time. So for the MEST Africa Challenge, we are having them say next, which I know is not the most ideal, but it helps with the connectivity issue. But I do think that that's good advice. Yeah, that all those are available if the pitch is happening in person. Virtual is a little bit different. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think also just being very, very adaptable. Like I did a pitch very early in it at OZÉ, and like every picture that I had just come up as a blue screen, and I did not handle it well. So like this notebook here that I'm swirling my mouse around, I was pitching in Boston, so they weren't intimately aware of what these notebooks were, and I kept saying like, well, if you could see the picture, like it did not go very well. So when technical challenges get in your way, you need to just kind of like pretend that the way that you're doing it is the way that you always intended to do it. And then you can go complain and laugh about it with your teammates later. So thank you for watching that pitch. I'm going to refer back to it while I'm going through these slides, which is why we watched it. So I think, as I've said a couple of times, like in a pitch, that audience, the investor, they're your customer. And you really need to be pitching to the customer and understanding what they're why they're there and what they're trying to learn and do. So that was a much more like social impact. They told us pull on the heartstrings. Like I very rarely actually use the opening that I used in that pitch when I'm pitching OZÉ. And I don't ever use that opening when I'm just talking to investors. That was for Europeans in the government who wanted to give out grant money. So I gave another 3 different slides that I use at the beginning of an OZÉ presentation that's completely dependent on my audience. So for people who, like when I'm talking to local investors who will see this notebook and know what it is immediately, I typically start in with that on my screen and say, these notebooks are my enemy. This is a problem that we're trying to solve. How can we expect small business owners to thrive when they're using management tools that have been around for centuries? Right? When I'm talking to an audience who I can tell looks at me and says, what the heck does this chick know about small business in Africa? I use a picture of myself in my early 20s teaching at an African university as a way to say I've been working in the entrepreneurship space and small business for a decade. The one in the bottom corner was for a pitch that was all about how small businesses can create jobs. And so I started with the massive amount of youth unemployment. So we have so many versions of our pitch decks that we change the lead in, we change the length, we change the level of detail depending on who we're talking to and what the format is. Just one more thing to note too is it's important to understand how much they know about your market and how much they know about your industry. So if you're pitching to foreign investors, they might not realize how much opportunity there is. They might still have this picture in their head that, Africa needs water, Africa needs wells, and they wouldn't really know that Africa needs fintech solutions, right? And so we have a loop of slides we add in when we're talking to foreign investors that say things like the urban internet penetration in urban Africa is the same as it is in urban China. Like this is the smartphone penetration rate in Ghana. It's just 1% behind what it is in South Africa. So make sure too, you're doing the right level of market and industry education depending on your customer base, your investor base. Oops. Got a little sneak preview. So the second thing is to get specific. So you'll talk to entrepreneurs who don't know their numbers, and it's very clear because they'll say things like, our sales are growing fast, we have lots of customers and they like it, we get our customers for cheap, right? None of that is going to impress an investor who is giving you money to plant it in the ground and make it grow. So if you don't know like the growth rate of your customer base, how are you going to know the growth rate of their money? So whenever you're going to make these kinds of claims, like please, please, please back it up with numbers. So I copied in a slide from that presentation that I did where you see there are 3 key numbers on the slide. So our paid subscribers are growing at 67% average monthly. Our monthly recurring revenue per user is $13 on average, and our cost per download is 52 cents. What this slide allows me to do is say, like, yes, if you look at this chart, which has all the labels, right? So make sure you have a title, you have an x-axis, you have a y-axis. But if they look in and see the close math and like, ooh, 325 paying customers, that's not a lot. I'm telling them, yeah, it's not a lot because it's early, but it's growing really fast and it works. The economic model works. So this becomes much more compelling than if I was like, we have so many customers, they really like it and we're growing fast. And the investor might say like, well, if they really like it, like why are only 325 people paying for it? I also think you want to be careful on the flip side with showy math. So down here, right, in February when we first released the paid version, maybe that's like 2 customers. Probably here in March was like, I think when we were pitching MEST, we were at like, let's say 4 customers. I could go on stage without this bar chart and say, our customers doubled from February to March. And all it takes is one savvy judge in the audience to be like, doubled from what? So maybe like, oh, they doubled from 2 to 4. So please, no showy math. It's going to hurt you more in the long run. This is, I think, my like key piece of advice. I think this is why my pitches come across well. And that's because my transitions are really solid. So when I'm going from one slide to the next, every single slide transition has a sentence that ties what's on the next slide from what's on the previous slide. And you could ask me, go do a 5-minute pitch of OZÉ now, and I could do one for you. And it would sound polished and practiced. And that's because I know my transition lines. The things that I'm saying in between my transition lines might be off the top of my head. I'm being inspired by the slide. Something just happened. But because I know my transitions and my transitions are all planned, that's what's the difference between your pitch coming across as a very compelling speech rather than someone reading a PowerPoint presentation to you. So I think most people don't do this, and I think this is actually my secret, is to work on your transition sentences so that you're giving a 3 to 5 minute compelling presentation on your company and not like a boring like click, 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 like I'm doing now, right? My pitch is much more engaging than this presentation is because here I'm going through slides and talking through them rather than telling you one cohesive story. And then you really want to crush the ending, give a nice little mic drop at the end. So don't run out of time. I think I go to a lot of pitch competitions and events, and sometimes they let like the first 3 people run over crazy amounts, which is not fair to everyone else. And then they'll get to you and they'll be like, we're being strict on time now. The only way to make sure that you don't get cut off is to make sure that you're under time. And practicing and getting it under time once is not under time. You need it to be consistently under time before you get up there. Because people react in very different ways to like the pressure of being on stage. So like when I'm on stage, I talk very, very, very fast. And so I typically end up with it shorter than I thought. But some people, they stumble more, they like slow down, which is what you should do. And so you really want to make sure that you're comfortable with your time. When I do an ending of a pitch, I think you really want to motivate and inspire your audience. They are listening to a lot of pitches, and what you finish with is probably what they're going to remember the most. So reiterate why it's important that they choose your business and invest in your business, inspire and motivate them. And I really like when you tie the story you tell at the beginning of the pitch into the ending of your pitch, because that way, in that moment at the end, when they're just going to kind of remember how you finished, you're cueing them back to how you started. And then they're more likely to remember more of your pitch. So those are kind of my tips for success. And then of course, we don't want you to score an own goal, right? Which I think everyone knows what that means. There are things you can do to really mess up your chances. So practice, like no one should be doing their pitch for the first time in front of the audience at the MEST Africa Challenge Regionals. Don't just practice to your team, practice to a younger sibling, a grandmother, a friend who knows nothing about business. Make sure that they know what you're talking about, not somebody who knows your jargon, knows your acronyms, knows your industry. Only tell the truth. Do not exaggerate. You will get called out. I've seen it happen so many times. And even if there's 9 amazing things about a company and 1 lie, if that 1 lie comes out, it's done. People just aren't going to trust you. And then please, like, no typos. Make sure you're not like distorting someone's face so that it's stretched out in a weird way. Like, imagine you were watching a presentation on television, on the news, that a big company brought up. And imagine what you would think about that company if it looked like they hadn't even proofread their slides. So everything should be perfect. You can get very, very nitpicky, but we don't have much time, so I will leave that for another day. And then the last thing here is handling the question and answer period. I think the most important thing is to say, if you don't know the numbers off the top of your head, say, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but let me follow up with you on that. Rather than state numbers that you think are true that are not correct. Numbers like how many customers you have, growth rates, sales, cost of customer acquisition, you really should take time to know them off the top of your head before you pitch. But maybe they'll ask for something like, what was your growth rate from June to July last year compared to June to July this year? And you're like, that's not in my arsenal of things off the tip of my head. I'll get back to you. That's such a better answer than making it up. I just did a pitch where we ended up winning $25,000 equity free. And one of the judges was asking me, like, I'm really confused about your revenue model. And I said, let me be honest with you. We're at the stage in our business where we're still trying to figure out our revenue model. And if it's coming across as unclear to you, it's because we're still working on it. And here are the different tests that we're running in order to figure out what our revenue model is. That was a winning answer compared to if I just said, like, oh, you don't get it. Like, this is how we're going to make money, right? So you're early stage. No one expects you to be late stage, so don't try to hide it. You can lay breadcrumbs in your presentation to get the questions that you want, especially if it's a short Q&A session and you're not really comfortable with Q&A. You can say, like, our customers, like, have left us an average of 4.9 star review on the Play Store, and I'd love to tell you some of the things that they're saying if I have time. Then someone could ask you as their first question, what are some of the things that your customers are telling you? Just a friendly reminder to please go on mute. Oftentimes judges, because they're important people and important people like to talk, there's a question buried in a paragraph. And they talk, and at some point there's a question in there. So if that's the case, rephrase the question before you answer to make sure you're answering the right question. But also in doing that, you also get to answer the question that you want to answer. And then in that case, if you don't get the question, you can always ask for clarification and say, I'm not quite sure what you're asking. Did you mean, sorry, I don't know what's happening there. And then, of course, always answer the question that you want to answer. If you want to see this done masterfully, then you should go listen to some politicians speak, because the press will ask them one question and what they'll answer will be completely different than what they were asked. You can actually get away with it. So if I ask you, what was your growth rate from in the last 6 months, and it's not impressive, you can say, yes, growth is a really important metric, but what we're really measuring right now is retention. And let me tell you about what our retention has been, right? So there's a way to kind of skirt around the question. And because in your answer, you kind of acknowledge the question, they think that you answered it. So it's not like the most honest approach, but it is a successful approach. Sorry, I don't know why my computer is doing that. And now we're just going to watch one brief humorous example, sorry, Prince, your fixture, of what not to do, because there's a really short pitch on Shark Tank that I think really highlights for you how to not be vague, how to not be selly, and how to do a really good job. So that will be what I end with. I know I went definitely way over time.
Mary Ellen Simonson, who believes her product has the potential to make millions.
Hello, my name is Mary Ellen Simonson. I have created a product that will keep your sticky notes in place and organized while working at your computer. I am here to ask for $100,000 in investment for 20% equity in my company. I created this product because I was tired of losing sticky notes and having to reposition them all day long. This example here is an example of what we're all used to seeing. There's been no change in it. There's been no solution to it until today. You simply attach it to your laptop or your desktop, and you put all your notes here. You can also attach it to this side.
Marilyn, you created a sticky pad for sticky pads.
I created an arm for sticky pads.
That's worth $500,000?
Yes.
Please tell me why.
All you simply do is swing the sleeve in when you're ready to go, and as you can see, none of them fall off.
Oh, I see why it's worth $500,000.
Thank you.
It folds into the computer. Of course, that makes sense to me now. You've sold how many?
I have sold none.
Excellent, excellent. I think we should keep this a secret. It's so valuable that nobody should know about this. Come on, who's gonna buy this from you?
This year alone, 56 million laptops will be sold here in the United States.
Every one of them doesn't need your sticky arm.
This year alone, over 400 million laptops will be sold worldwide.
How much is it worth? What would I pay for that?
$950.
Stop the madness. Are you out of your mind?
Yes.
Are you crazy?
Yes.
Who would give you $10 for that?
A lot of people.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
I've done surveys.
There's so
So I'll end it there and put us all out of our misery. But some things to note that she did wrong. Number one, her product's not solving a problem that anyone has, right? That problem is easily solvable, not for $10, if it's something you're motivated to solve. The second thing is that she's saying that people want it, but she hasn't sold any of it. So no one's paying for it, no one's buying it, but she's claiming that people want it. And the third thing is she's sizing her market all wrong. So, and if we were to watch the whole thing, she keeps bringing it up until they tell her to please stop bringing it up. But she talks about the number of laptops that are being sold. So just find some showy, huge, big number because you think it will sell your company is not the right number to sell. Because we can see that there's no relationship really between the number of laptops sold per year and the number of sticky pad arms that need to be sold. So my final word of advice to you is be yourself during your pitch and don't be the sticky note holder lady. So that is it for me.
Thank you so much, Megan. That was a very, very good note to end on. I learned a lot, and just a key point for those in the chat, as well as some people are heading out, there will be a blog post kind of reiterating and consolidating all the key takeaways from this as well. So don't stress if you haven't written everything down perfectly yet, because we will do that for you. I think Prince is going to join us now for a little bit of a Q&A. I know that we're kind of getting close to end of time, so we'll be quick on this one for kind of an investor perspective take on what investors are looking for from these pitches. And just a reminder to have video and audio off in the meantime, just for connectivity. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much, Megan, for the presentation. That was very awesome. Thanks also, Strong. Yeah, so my key takeaway from this session that you did was about knowing your audience, knowing your numbers and being specific, crash your transitions, crash the ending, and handle your Q&A like a pro. So I hope everyone else also had some interesting tips to also take home as well. At the end of this session, we hoping that you'll actually be able to walk away with certain strategies that will help make your pitch perfect. So with that, we'll quickly move into the panel session, and we have two brilliant ladies as our panelists as well. let's start with Landy Strom. Landy Strom actually do have a background in international relations from the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, and is currently the MEST Africa's manager of the community of 350 plus elite tech startup businesses, and also helps to manage 50 plus portfolios in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. She is super interested in building, managing ecosystem partnerships and coordinating growth opportunities, and advocate for African
startups and founders. You killed it.
Great, perfect. So on the continent. And so she is going to be our first panelist, and our second panelist is Meghan, who just had her presentation. Let me also give you just a little bit background of her. She's the CEO of OZÉ.
You don't need to give any background.
I'm there to innovate.
And let Wendy answer the question.
And she's my boss as well.
Yeah, when I say you can't introduce me, you can't. Go ahead and ask one.
Yeah,
thanks,
great.
Meghan.
So, so I do have some quick questions. Let's start first with you, Meghan. So the presentation that you did, good stuff. What are the key highlights that every investor actually looks out for in a pitch?
Meghan, do you want me to go ahead and
yeah. So Wendy's going to answer the questions from the investor perspective, so that we save on time and we make sure that people have the opportunity to practice their pitch.
Awesome, that's great. Yeah, so Wendy.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you. First and foremost, Meghan, amazing presentation. I also want to say that it is not at all true that OZÉ was only picked as a winner because we were looking for 3. I have to say that the MEST Africa Challenge typically only has 1 winner. And last year we were so impressed by all 3 of your guys' pitches that is why you were selected. So I have to give you more credit where credit is due there. But yeah, a little bit of background about what we look for from the investor's perspective or the accelerator or incubator's perspective in these pitches. So when we're in audiences at demo days or pitch competitions, what are we kind of looking to draw from these pitches and really understand in such a short amount of time about your quick one, Prince, just to mute, no stress. So I want to give you guys a little bit of a inside scoop, and the 2020 finalists have already received this information. We actually make public what the judges of the MEST Africa Challenge are looking for in order to allow the finalists to kind of tailor their pitches to that criteria. It's not anything super secret. It's pretty basic. Meghan has kind of covered what those types of things that you need to make sure that you hit are, but I'm going to let you in on it as well. So a couple of things, we kind of have 5, I'd say, like categories that I'm just going to run through. Prince, if that sounds good to you.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, cool. So first being, and again, this will all get written down for you, but first being your idea. So obviously, what is the problem you're solving? What is the value proposition behind that problem? Showing your innovation and the originality around your innovative solution to that problem and kind of your big impact on that problem. So that's what you're starting with. We want to understand what problem you're solving and why it's an important problem to solve. We then look for preparation to launch. So for us, that looks like customer identification and segmentation. Who are you targeting? Who are you looking for? Like Meghan said with that Shark Tank pitch at the end there, if you're targeting all laptop users, is that a legitimate or realistic kind of customer segmentation? We're looking at that, the size of your target market. If your target market is people named Lundy Strom who, are blonde and have blue eyes, then your target market is not very big. So we're looking at if that's scalable, if the target market that you're looking at is big enough to make money off of. Your core revenue model. So whether or not you're currently generating revenue, sure, but what is your plan to do so? So how are you going to make money? Is it something that people pay to use? Is it something that ads are going to pay for? We want to know that, how feasible that is, how realistic that is, that people will pay for it or that people will pay to advertise on your platform or through your business. Competitor analysis, who else is in the space? Who else is doing what you're doing? Chances are even the most innovative solutions are being done elsewhere or some other way. In some other way, there's hopefully a very unique value proposition that you're bringing to the table, but we want to know what your competitors are doing and what you're doing differently from them. So that's something that you can speak to directly. Moving on to, and I know I'm speaking kind of fast just in the sake of time, but again, this will all get written down. We're looking at your execution plan. So that being sales, go-to-market strategy. How are you actually planning to execute all of the things that you've just told us about previously? And then past that execution strategy, your growth and your scaling strategy. So once you start selling to a couple, how are you going to start selling to a lot? And where are those markets going to be? So if you're starting in Ghana, once you hit Ghana, where are you going to go from there? Can you scale from there? All those questions. Second to last would be progress and traction. So the literal and practical kind of numbers behind all of those things. So traction to date is really clarifying those numbers. And Megan, I think, touched on this a lot, and it's maybe the most important, those numbers behind your customers and accurate numbers at that stage. So this is where you show off your sales up to that point, your downloads, website traffic, customer acquisition, and what you've accomplished so far. I think Megan did a good job of touching on, if you don't have those numbers yet, what can you highlight instead of, or what about them can you highlight to still make you sound good, even if you have 2 customers going to 4 over a month at the very beginning. And then finally, what I think she touched on as well is the team. We always ask for or look for oftentimes a team slide that not only personifies your company and really makes, puts a face behind what you're talking about and those who are working on what you're talking about, but also shows the expertise of your team to kind of explain why you guys are the best people to be doing what you're doing. So why are you knowledgeable in this space? Why are you the best one to be providing this solution? I think a lot of times investors say that they invest in people before an idea or a business. Investment is a really long-term personal relationship that is held between you and your investors. So that's an important thing to touch on. I think that oftentimes goes at the very end because obviously numbers and stuff it's kind of are considered more important, but I think it's very important to touch on kind of who is your team and who are the people behind the work that you're doing. So that is what we look for in the MEST Africa Challenge in a nutshell. That was a lot of things, but that is literally the points that the judges get asked to kind of mark off. That's what companies are scored on and what our kind of winner is based on, is
right.
all those categories.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lindy. These are great stuff. So I do have one more question. It is said that investors invest in people as much as they do in products. So how do you demonstrate to investors within a 5 minutes pitch that you are doing that you're a good investment as a person?
Yeah, I think Megan touched on a lot of kind of, and like I said, the personification behind the business. So it's not necessarily just about having a solid pitch deck and being able to rattle off a script, which a lot of people can do, but being personable and showing off your personality through that pitch, being confident in what you're talking about as a founder or a team member, and really ensuring that you're kind of having that personal connection, which I think has been talked about a lot with COVID, a lot of those due diligence sessions that are more often than not in person, because investors and founders want to, sit across from each other in person at a table and get those kind of relationships down at the beginning, have been challenging during COVID. So a lot of people have been saying, well, is this going to impact investment in the future because people aren't meeting in person? And there's 2 sides to that. A lot of people are saying this could be the future of investments, that you're doing due diligence on Zoom. A lot of people are not comfortable with that. So I think doing your best to show off who you are as a person to the best of your ability, while still hitting all those very technical elements, is important to remember.
Thank you very much, Lindy. I know we all have a lot of questions right now, but because of time, we'll just quickly run into the breakout session. And when we have some time left, then you can ask questions during the remarks or at the end of it. Okay. So Megan, I'm going to make you the host so that you can do the breakout session then.
Sure. Thank you so much. So what we want to do now is give people an opportunity to take what they learned and practice a pitch. So you just heard all of this new information. No one is expecting this pitch to be perfect. This pitch is a work in progress. So I hope that we'll have a couple of brave volunteers in each room who want to give their 1-minute pitch. And then everyone else, please actively listen and give feedback to that person so that you can make their pitch even stronger. I know we wanted to make this session pretty short and end pretty early for our friends on East Africa time, for whom it's getting very late. So if you do need to go, feel free to go. Everything that's left in the session is just for you to participate and learn from each other. So no pressure to stay at all at this point. But if you do want feedback on your pitch, we'll put you in the breakout rooms for about 10 minutes so that you can have maybe 2 people in each room go and get feedback from the other people in the room. And we'll put about 5 people in a breakout room so that the groups are pretty small and intimate. Okay, so I will send everyone out into breakout rooms now. When you get the invitation to join the breakout room, please join it. And then in 10 minutes, we'll call you all back in. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Megan. Thanks everyone for joining. Anyone who's jumping off right now, thanks again for joining. I've been invited to a breakout room, so I'm gonna hop off and go join. Thanks everyone. Chat to you in a bit.
For those who haven't gone into your breakout room yet, have you not gotten an invitation or you just haven't gone?
Yeah, Megan, we really had a very great session in our breakouts. Two good businesses that were into books, selling books online and swapping books with each other, and also a peanut butter business. And I think it's really helped to improve as to how they should develop pitches. Great.
Yeah, I popped into a couple of rooms as well and heard some really promising pitches, including from some semifinalists. So I know that one of the benefits of the MEST Africa Challenge going online is that we are all welcome to watch it. So I can't wait to join and see the real thing.
Exactly. Yeah, I had a sneak preview of one of our Nigerian semifinalists, which was really exciting. And then also a fellow Ghanaian from Accra who does more physical hardware sales, but we got to talking about his product as well. So that was really, really interesting to hear. I know we're kind of over time and we're definitely getting late on the East Africa side. So I think we can probably wrap up. This has been great, Megan. Thank you so much, and Prince and Dave for organizing and for putting this together. Again, we will have blog post takeaways available hopefully shortly in the next couple days or two, or the next week. I'm also going to include the link to register to watch the MEST Africa Challenge below, or in the chat, MEST Africa Challenge, there we go. If you go to that link, you can register for the next 8 country finals. We have Kenya tomorrow, then Cote d'Ivoire, then I think it goes Ghana, Senegal, Tanzania, and then Nigeria, South Africa. I'm missing one. Rwanda's in there somewhere. I don't know the order, but come along and watch. I think watching people's pitches is also one of the best ways to improve as well. So thanks again. And thanks everyone for joining. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And to anyone here who doesn't know OZÉ, who's outside of Ghana, you can still benefit from the app. So just look for it in the Google Play Store. Prince is our OZÉ business coach. So if you want to get more feedback on your pitches and more tips from him, feel free to download OZÉ, set up a profile, and chat him at any time. But we wish everybody the best of luck. And thank you so much for spending a couple of hours with us.
Thanks, Megan. I'll speak to you soon. Thank you so much, Prince. See you guys later. See you online for the country finals. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.